everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today with a very belated video. But I've been dying to actually film this, and I know it's like half a year late, but I know you guys won't mind because you love me and you accept my tardiness for the most part. So that video today is the top 19 books that I want to read in 2019. This list is comprised of books that I haven't read yet in this year, so it's kind of ambitious of me to be listing 19 books that I want to read in like 6 months, 7 months. I'm really excited about all these, and I'm actually pretty sure that I would end up getting to all of them, and I'm really excited to share this list with you guys. But I have a spread that I made for it on my bullet journal, and I think it's just so cute. Very simple, you know, like my normal bullet journal spreads. Let's just get into it because 19 books is a lot to talk about. The first book that I really want to get to for the rest of this year, I'm not going to be saying that for the rest of my video, so just know that's what I'm talking about every single time. The first book that I want to get to is going to be The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a beast of a book, super huge. It's a thick boy. But I really want to read this book. I think it's going to be fantastic. I've heard nothing but good things. I'm a very big fantasy lover, and I know that this has a lot of fantastic feminist themes, LGBTQ themes, and dragons, which that's honestly the selling point for me. I don't know much else about it, and I don't really want to know much else about it. I love going into thick fantasy books blind because then every single step is a surprise. Also, you can expect that most, if not all, of the books on this list are predicted 5-star reads for me, just because why else would I really want to read a book in 2019? The next book that I want to read this year is the only book that I have a little bit of a start on, and that's gonna be The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a book that I've been dying to get to since last year, since it first came out. I remember just stumbling upon her Twitter before the book ever came out, not knowing who she was, thinking that she was like very new to the scene and that I had just stumbled upon like a hidden gem, and she was talking about how The Poppy War would be coming out, and I was intrigued instantly. I followed her instantly, and the moment Poppy War came out, I was so happy because it just blew up. Everyone was so into it. Everyone was in love with it. And it's a dark book, guys. It's a dark fantasy reimagining of history, and I've already started it. I'm already in love with it, as many of you know if you've been watching my vlogs, and I just definitely want to finish this year and then probably get to the Dragon Republic, but since it's not out yet, I'm not going to put it on my list. Let me know also, guys, if you want to see a most anticipated reads. I'm not going to do 19, but I could still do that for you. But let me know if you do want to see that video still, this late series of mine, then I will do it. But yeah, Poppy War, it's just fantastic. We have Rin Fang, who is this intense and crazy and determined warrior of a girl, and she comes from nothing. She is a peasant that has an awful life, and she's an orphan, and she decides that she's going to take control of her fate and to take a test that barely anyone in the kingdom can pass, and that she has to get one of the highest scores on so she can get a full ride scholarship to a warrior school. And she does it. That's not a spoiler because that happened in the very beginning, but she does it, and we get to watch her through this journey. It's super fast paced, and I want to finish this. I bet you guys thought that this list would be entirely fantasy, and you are mostly correct, but this next book is not a fantasy book, but it's still something that I really want to get to, and that's gonna be What I Lost by Alexandra Ballard. I've been very intrigued by this book for a very long time, ever since I heard Emma from Emma Books talk about it. It is a dark contemporary story about a girl dealing with her eating disorder, and I think it's post-rehab. From the way that I heard it described by Emma Books, it's just a very accurate and good portrayal of someone that's going or that went through an eating disorder and is still kind of living with the consequences of it every single day. And I am always very interested in books that deal with serious topics, and I'm always interested in books that have to do with mental illnesses. I like getting into the minds of people that are going through these things, and obviously this is fiction, but there's a layer of truth in everything, so I love reading from that point of view. It really ignites my little psychology heart, so yeah. Next up on this list is something that I'm really excited to start this year. I kind of am hoping to just finish the entire series this year, but we'll see if that happens, and that's gonna be Shadowcaster by Cynthia Williams Chima. This is the next series that is set in the same world as her Seven Realms series, and this is the Shattered Realms. I'm so intrigued to see what happens because Seven Realms ended in a way that I personally really enjoyed, and I loved this series so much. Our two main characters, Hans and Princess Reza, were just, I love them. I love them so much, and I don't know who these books follow. I don't know if it's the same cast or if it's years in the future. I'm really not sure. I just know that it's in the same world, and that's kind of enough for me to jump into it. But besides that, I'm just curious to see what could have possibly happened after the events of Seven Realms for an entire series to be called Shattered Realms. That sounds dramatic and drastic and probably amazing. So I definitely want to get to this book specifically, but I'm also really hoping to finish all 4 books because the 4th book of this series actually just came out, and that is the last book. So I read all 4 books of the Seven Realms series last year, and I kind of would love to read all 4 books of the Shattered Realms this year. This next baby is one that I've been putting off, but I literally have to get to at this point because the next book in the series that follows this one just came out, and I really want to know what that's all about because I saw all these hangover recovery kits and I kind of wanted them, but I was like, I haven't even read the last book in the first series. And I bet you know what I'm talking about at this point, and that's gonna be Morningstar by Pierce Brown. I love this series. It's a sci-fi series set in this... What did you do, T'Challa? There was a huge bang, and T'Challa, I walk into my makeup room and he's on top of the bookshelf that holds all the DVDs. I have no idea how he got there. He had this look on his face like, I have no idea how I got here. And then he just jumped off so casually. Cats, dude, cats. But anyways, back to Morningstar. This is a sci-fi series. It's set in a brutal, brutal world where everyone is kind of set into a caste system. We have the Reds, who are going to be our lowest tier, basically the slaves of the world without even really knowing that they're slaves. And then we have our top tier, which is going to be Gold. And they are the leaders of this society, the rulers of this society. Their bodies, their minds, everything about them has been technologically engineered to be just better than every other person and every other color. And with this specifically, we follow Daryl, who is a Red who is going to break that mold. And it's just so fantastic. It's so riveting. It's brutal, guys. Like, gory. There's a reason why, like, one of the main phrases in this is gory damn, I swear. But it's just so good. I love it so much. It has such a special place in my heart. And I will say, I've been wanting to just read this series, but the audiobooks are so good. Their narrator has done such a fantastic job of creating this accent that the Golds are supposed to have that now I can't even imagine it without this narrator's voice. It's rich and beautiful. So I will likely end up listening to this on audio no matter how badly I want to read it physically. Maybe I'll follow along physically, I don't know. But I have to finish this trilogy because I have to know what happens in this world, because the way that Golden Sun ended, I don't know how I put off picking this up for so long. Like, I just remembered how it ended and I'm like emotional and gonna cry. So I'm gonna pick up Morningstar this year, and with any luck, I'll pick up the next 2 books that are in the following series because I'm very curious to see what those follow. Oh, this next book is one that I'm actually so excited for. It is kind of different from all the other books on my list. I don't know, but it's gonna be Searcy by Madeline Miller. I haven't read Son of Achilles, but you don't have to have read Son of Achilles to read Searcy, and I kind of want to read Searcy more than I've ever wanted to read Son of Achilles, or Song. I know eventually I'll get to that one, but I really want to read this one first. This is a epic story that follows our beloved witch goddess Searcy, and I'm just really intrigued by it. I know that Rhiannon over at Crescent Moon Reads raves about this book, loves it so much, and I've actually heard really amazing things about this, from like the lyrical writing to the poetic style to the intense story. You're really rooting for this character by the end, and I just can't wait to see it. I've always really loved Greek mythology. I've always loved mythology in general, so to learn more about Greek mythology is always on my bucket list, and this one's definitely gonna be doing that. So this next book is one of the only ones that I kind of had to play around with, because originally the first book in this series had been on my 19 books I want to read in 2019. But then I read it, and I'm like, I'm not going to just include it in my video when I've already read it. I feel like that's cheating. So we're doing the next one, and that's going to be Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. This is a series I didn't expect to love nearly as much as I already have. I couldn't originally get into the writing style, and I was like, there's just so many new things, so many things happening, which is what fantasy normally is all about, but for whatever reason it just wasn't working with me. And then I picked it up on audio and I fell in love. I'm not that big of a fan of the audiobooks, I'm gonna mention that right now. Like, the narrator didn't do that great of a job, but it was what I needed to push me through the very beginning of the story and the parts that I thought weren't manageable for me. And now I'm definitely going to be reading Wind Witch physically because I fell in love with Truth Witch. I love our 2 main characters, Isolde and Safi. They have these beautiful friendship. They are thread sisters and they just look out for each other, and you can tell that they're all each other thinks about, and they love each other so much, and they would do anything for each other. And I love Prince Merrick, who is this kind of mysterious, very determined prince from a different land, and I love the magic system. That is probably my favorite part about this book. It is so creative, so unlike anything I've ever read before. I'm just very intrigued to see how Wind Witch takes it to the next level. Oh, and just as like a brief history, no, I don't even want to tell you what the magic system is like, because I want you to go in kind of blind and just be surprised by the mastery that Susan Dennard describes it with, when there's like nothing like it that I've ever read. We also have This Mortal Coil on this list by Emily Savada. This is kind of a new one that I'm very intrigued by. Now, don't hate me for this, but I literally do not know anything about this. I know that it is a sci-fi novel. I know that Emily Savada is an author that has a background in some kind of STEM degree. I don't know which one. And for whatever reason, that was enough to intrigue me into this, because I would love to read a sci-fi story by someone that actually has some sort of STEM degree. I'm not sure if I've ever done that before. I might have, but this is my first time going into that knowingly. I've heard really good things about it, but I also just haven't actually heard that much about it. So hopefully I'll read this and we can all discover something brand new. Ooh, okay. So the first line is, Katerina Agata is a hacker. And that's enough for me. Oof. This next one is maybe the only one that I'm not sure is gonna be a 5-star read. I'm very nervous going into it, just because even though the first book I really enjoyed, the second book I basically dragged myself through. And in general with this series, I have been dragging myself through it. As much as I've been enjoying it and enjoyed being in this world, I've just found it so slow, and I don't know. I'm kind of nervous going into it, but I still have to read it this year, because if I don't read it this year, then I'm very behind, and that just sounds terrible. So that's gonna be Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This is the third book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. I've heard mixed things, I really have. I've heard a lot of people either saying that the Dark Artifices are their favorite series in this Shadowhunter world. Personally, Infernal Devices still holds that title because it's fantastic. But I've heard other people have the same issues as I do, finding it very slow, very kind of hard to get through, very monotonous. But that doesn't stop a lot of people from having said that Queen of Air and Darkness is their favorite book in the trilogy. And so I do have some hopes. It's not like I'm gonna hate this book, I know that for a fact, but it's just I'm not intensely interested in picking it up. I'm only interested because I don't want to fall too far behind in the Shadowhunter world, because then I would have to catch up for a while. This is the last book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, which is something that I've already said, but the Dark Artifices follow Emma Carstairs. I believe it's Emma Carstairs and the Blackthorns. This series is much more political in its roots. There is a romance. I think actually that might be why I haven't been that interested in it, because the main romance in this book is one I'm not rooting for. I just don't find it very interesting. I don't like it very much. And I'm just like, I hope that it doesn't end well. Does that make me an awful person? I don't know. I just don't love the romance in this. And romance is something that Cassandra Clare can normally just win me over with. That has been my favorite part of all the Shadowhunter books, and since this one isn't my favorite, I think that's why I'm having such a hard time getting through it. But I do love the aspects of this book that have been brought in that aren't romance. I love the political intrigue. I love learning more about this world, because I feel like we're just learning so much more about the Shadowhunter world in this series. And then I love the twins, the Blackthorn twins. They're just so fantastic, and I know that they're kind of a big part of this story since they're eventually going to get their own series. So I'm excited to read it for that, and to let you guys know how I feel about this series. Oh, it's the edition. I didn't know that all of the editions had this, so I'm kind of excited about that. Oh, look at Church, he's so angry. Next up is another book that I don't know too much about, but it is an adult fantasy novel, and I've been getting more into adult fantasy, so that's very exciting, and that's gonna be the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Yeah, the only thing that I know about this book is that it's fantasy, and that it's kind of set in like a post-apocalypse sort of world. That's it. That's really all I know. Everyone says that this is one of the best fantasy books they've ever read, and I believe that all 3 books in this series won the Hugo Award for their year. So in 2016 when this came out, it won it. The next year when the next book came out, that book won the Hugo Award, and so on and so forth. Obviously I didn't need to explain that to you, I'm sure you understood what I meant. But for a fantasy series to consistently get the Hugo Award, it must be phenomenal, and that is kind of the biggest reason why I want to read this. I've also heard it's a very fast read, so that's really cool because I feel like adult fantasy never reads fast. This is the year of finishing series for real because this next book is also the last book in a trilogy, and that's gonna be The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I have been reading this series for what feels like my entire booktube life, and not just the booktube life you guys know about. I mean, like, since I started booktube that first time around when I was 17 and thought I knew what I was doing, I wanted to read this book then. So I feel like it's been a long time coming, but I feel like it's finally time for me to finish it. These ones do read pretty slow to me, and that is kind of what's been keeping me from finishing them, but they're fantastic. They have gorgeous covers, and I do like the worlds that Brandon Sanderson creates. I think that he's very detailed. He really makes you feel like it's a real world. He put that much thought into it. The magic systems are insane and incredible and so out of the box. It's not what you normally see in magic, and that is something that is always really intriguing to me. But this series specifically follows Vin, who is this nobody. She is a nobody who accidentally stumbles upon something huge. That she is a mistborn, which means that she not only can control one of the magics that ingesting metal gives you the ability to hold over, but she can ingest all of the metals and have all of the magic powers, which is super rare in this world, and she learns it from one of the mistborns who is probably the best mistborn around. And it just follows their story as they take over and try and destroy this dark leader, and there's sadness and pain and lots of political intrigue. I loved the first book. The second book I felt was pretty slow, and I'm really hoping the third book brings it home. Oh my god, another big boy fantasy. I don't know how I'm gonna get through all these books this year. That's gonna be Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. This is actually another one that I had to kind of change up in my list. I totally forgot about that. It was originally Game of Thrones, but I read Game of Thrones, yay! And now I want to read Clash of Kings, and it's so big. It's so huge, and like, it's as big as Priory. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but Priory's pages are thicker. That's only like 600 pages. This is like 1,000. Okay, it's like 850, but the next one is like 1,000, and that's insanity. It's actually hurting my arm to hold this up, but if you don't know what a Game of Thrones is about, it's basically about a Game of Thrones. It's in this world called Westeros, and well, I mean, there's a little bit of Essos, but it's mostly based on the world of Westeros, where there are lords that are trying to okay, everyone's just battling for the throne and wants to be the king of the world. So that's really what it's about. There are dragons. This series just ended on HBO, and I have high hopes for the books in comparison to how the season ended. I mean, I know they're supposed to end the same, but I just know George R.R. Martin won't do this nearly as dirty. So I have to read these books to, I don't know, to recover. The next two books are also adult fantasy. Who am I? I thought I had more contemporary on this list. So that's gonna be The Last Wish by... Someone one time told me how to pronounce his name, and now I can't remember, and I feel like a Dumbo. Yep, that's his name. I don't know how to pronounce it. This is The Last Wish, which is the books that the Witcher games are based off of. The Witcher is the first video game I ever played, and it is one that I love deeply and unconditionally. I've replayed it a couple times now, and it's just so fantastic. And when I found out that there were books that this entire video game was based off of, I had to pick up the first one. I've heard that this is actually an amazing series, and a ton of you guys have told me that I have to get to it. And it's like pretty tiny, so, and floppy. I'm into it. So we're gonna give it a go this year. Basically, the Witcher is Geralt of Rivia, who is this Witcher, which basically means that his body went through a certain amount of mutations so that he could fight demons and use magic, and it's just really interesting. This world is so intense, and I can't wait to see how the books do it. This is another book that I actually have a little bit of a head start on and that I just never finished, and that's gonna be The Sabers Champion by Jenna Morrissey. I am about 100 pages into this book, and it was just starting to pick up when I just put it down and then forgot to pick it back up. So I definitely want to finish it this year. This is just something that a lot of my friends have told me that they loved and that they didn't understand why I didn't love it. So I'm excited to read the rest of the book and see if I love it, because the first 100 pages were pretty boring for me, but right at the point that I put this book down, I was like, wow, I'm actually really enjoying this. I don't know why I put it down, guys. I really don't. Basically, this is a world where they have a savior, this divine ruler who saved their entire kingdom, and every single generation is born with the same kind of magic. And this newest generation is looking for a suitor, for a husband, for a king, and she has set up a game for a bunch of men to play in, and whoever comes out alive basically gets to be her Champion. Thank God it's a contemporary, well, it's not a contemporary, but it's written by a contemporary author, so I'm assuming it's gonna kind of read like a contemporary. And that's gonna be Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is basically kind of like a play on Harry Potter. This is the story that was being written in Fangirl by our main character. So I definitely want to make time for it this year. I know that the next book in the series, Wayward Sons, is coming out. It basically follows Simon Snow, who is the chosen one. He's basically the Harry Potter, and then we have Baz, who is this vampire wizard, but it's basically supposed to be a play on Draco and Harry if they ended up, you know, finding out that they had feelings for each other and went hella gay and cute and stuff. I know that people love it so much. I feel like it's gonna be a really fast and fun read, and that's really all I know going into it. I just know the pieces that we were able to read in Fangirl. This next book is actually the only book on this list that I have already read, but that I want to reread this year, and it's something that I'm really excited about because it's been a long time in coming for a reread, and that's gonna be Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the cool, fancy 20th anniversary editions, and I know these are Gryffindor colors. This is before I took the test for the last time and finally got Slytherin, which is where I always feel like my heart belonged. To be honest though, I'm definitely more of a Slytherdor, so it's okay. I think I'm just gonna get this entire, like, these editions in, like, Gryffindor Slytherin colors, like every other one. I have never reread the Harry Potter series, and I did love it a lot, but I had a different experience going into it than most people did. I didn't read them as they were coming out. I kind of discovered them way later in my reading life, and then even then I just wasn't that invested until like the 5th book. I finally had read them all when the 7th book was being released, and so I was there with the rest of the world when we all got really excited about Deathly Hallows. I read it all in one sitting, and I have never picked any of those books up again. And I know there's a ton I missed. I just know it, because when I was younger, when I wanted to speed read, I would kind of like skip the boring chunks of a book. Not like entire pages or anything like that, but if I was reading and like I got really bored like halfway through a sentence, I would kind of skip to the next paragraph. I just know there's so much of Harry Potter that I have missed, and so much that I just never knew about, and I have wanted to reread it for such a long time, especially ever since the illustrated edition started coming out. And I just feel like a fake fan, because every other super Harry Potter fan has definitely reread this like every single year for the rest of their lives ever since Deathly Hallows came out, and I never have. So am I really a fan? I guess we'll find out this year. I'm sure everyone knows what Harry Potter is about, but if you didn't, it's about this boy named Simon Snow. No, I'm kidding. Oh, I actually just realized I put those back to back. That's kind of funny. I'm so scared this stack of books is gonna like come tumbling down on top of it. Okay, there's only 3 more books, thank freaking God. And that's gonna be Defy Me by Tahata Mafi. I'm so hyped about this. I really like the Shatter Me series. I have such a good time with it. I love Juliette Ferrer, I can't remember how her last name is said, but I love her. I love Warner. I used to reread these books all the time, so when the new books in the series came out, I was just insanely excited. The last book, it was pretty like, oh, okay, yeah. But this one I just know is gonna be jam-packed with insanity. I'm a little nervous because I'm pretty sure Witty Novels, who is like the fangirl for the Shatter Me series, I'm pretty sure she didn't love Defy Me, which is interesting. I'm very, very intrigued to see what happens. I've kind of managed to stay away from most spoilers. There's one thing I've been spoiled for, but I don't know how it's gonna happen, so I'm sure it's fine. If you didn't know, the Shatter Me series is about a girl named Juliette Ferrars whose touch is lethal. She has been locked up for most of her life because anyone that touches her basically dies, and she has no control over it. So we follow her story as she kind of learns this magic, learns this powers in this post-apocalyptic world that's been taking over, and they're gonna take it down, and that is the entire basis of this story. But then we have this plot twist in the last book, and now I'm really intrigued to see what's gonna happen. Yay, another contemporary! So it's gonna be They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I've never read an Adam Silvera book at all, and I know that he is like the king of contemporary here on BookTube, so I'm excited to see what his writing is like. I know that most people are all for him, but I've actually seen a couple people in most recent years just be like, not for me. So I'm interested to see where I lie on the spectrum, and I'm glad that I'm starting with They Both Die at the End, because I feel like this is one of the most universally loved of his books. This is set in a world where on the day of your death, you receive a message telling you that you're gonna die that day. There are so many like programs set in place for you to live out your final day to its fullest. And there are these programs so that you can meet someone that's also gonna die at the end of that day. And that is how our two main characters in this story meet. And those are gonna be Mateo and Rufus, and they are just gonna spend their last day together and potentially fall in love. And also there's gonna be tons of heartbreak because it's literally in the title, guys. They both die at the end, and I don't know, I'm holding out some hope, but I'm pretty sure they're both gonna die at the end. The last book on this list is unlike any of the other books that I've talked about, and that is because it's a classic. I've been wanting to read more classics, and ideally I had wanted to read like 10 classics this year, but I started way late and I don't want to force too much on myself, so I'm starting with just one, and that is gonna be one that I'm incredibly excited for and was gifted to me by one of my favorite people here, and that's gonna be Zafina over at the Psycho Nick. That is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I am so excited. This is the stunning cloth-bound classics edition, which I just want to start an entire classics cloth-bound edition series set on my shelves because they're so beautiful. I feel like this is actually a classic that's perfect to get me into classics because it's probably gonna be a fast read. It's dark, it's mysterious, it's just gonna captivate me. I don't know too much about it, which is kind of cool because I feel like with classics you know everything about it before you go into it because there's so much about it in our education system, but I don't know much about Picture of Dorian Gray. The only thing I really know about it is it's about this man who basically sells his soul and it's held inside of a mirror so that he could stay young forever because he's narcissistic. And he has to watch himself age in the mirror but never age outwardly, and it's just an intense story about the fallout of that decision. I really don't know. I just know that he sold his soul for youth. And that's pretty intriguing to me. I could totally be wrong too, so if I am wrong about that summary, don't roast me. I don't know what it's about, guys. Those are the 19 books I want to read in 2019. It is an ambitious pile, it's an ambitious TBR, but I actually have pretty high hopes for myself that I'm gonna read them all. So I wanted to show you the little spread that I made for it really fast. It's just like on the very front page and it just says 19 books to read in 2019, and I listed them all right here with like a little star system so that I can see how many stars I gave it, and I don't know, I just really like it. It's simple, but I mean, all my bullet journal spreads are. And I also ended up putting every single one of the books that I potentially want to read in this little thing in my bookshelf. Like I already wrote down the titles, that way once I read them I can just color them in. And I feel like that's gonna be another motivator for me to actually read all the books on this list. Also, obviously my summaries for these were pretty short because there were so many to talk about, and also I didn't know some of the summaries. So as always, I'm linking all the books I talked about in this video down below, and you can follow the link to them to learn more about them or to buy them yourself and try and join me on this incredible mission. So thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you in my next one. Don't forget to let me know if you want to still see an anticipated reads, like anticipated releases video. I could definitely still make it. I just feel like it's way too late for that now. So yeah, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye!